Hello again. I am back a day and a half later, um, and I'm not stitching today, so I'm not gonna have my v- super bright stitching light on the side of my face. I think I just am a lot of the time because I need it. It makes being able to see what you're doing with a tiny needle much easier, even if it interferes with how I look on camera. So, yeah, these are my assistants. This is Sally Owens, formerly Scorpia. She was very excited to sit in my lap, but she doesn't like it when I talk to people who aren't her. Up here is her little sister Jillian, Adora, Jilly Bean. She might stay in the room since she's far enough away to accept me talking. But it's very hard to be a cat, and yes. Anyway, but today I just thought I'd chat a little bit about my house gnome. This is Olaf, uh, and I brought him home. I just got him from Aldi, and I made him. This is his head and hat. I made him a new hat. I made this little jacket, which is flimsy, very simply stitched. Boots also are just very, basically I outlined and then outlined his foot on a piece of paper and then sewed two halves of that outline, two pieces of that outline together to be boots, because I haven't made anything like shoes before, and he's not going to be walking on them, so they don't need to be sturdy, and then I'll have a shape the next time inspiration strikes to do something better. Anyway, so that's what I've made for him. But Olaf is my house gnome, his little house spirit. He sits usually on top of this bookcase, which I guess you can kind of see. He usually sits right up there. Point with his hat. And he has been, I've had him for 2 years, probably, maybe 3. He's only been out here for maybe a year or so. But he has been an experiment, something I'm trying. There's another word I want, but something I'm trying in order to, one, kind of try out more witchy avenues to connect with my place here as a home, my place here, yeah, in Des Moines, in Iowa, as a community or whatever. Anyway, but starting with here in my apartment as a home. And he's also, yes, I picked him, this method, as a way to try and connect with some not shitty aspects of my heritage. Because my ancestry is almost entirely German. 2 of my grandparents were born in Germany, one in northeast Germany, one in Bavaria. My other 2, one of my other grandparents was adopted, but their birth parents, I believe, were also born in Germany. So they're German, that genetically their adoptive parents had been in Iowa, had maybe been, I think, born in Iowa, and then were part of generations, at least a few generations in America, who had been progressively moving east as, America came into, the United States of America came into existence and took over the nations that were here before. But anyway, so Germany. My other grandparent has the ancestry that a dear friend helped me find. As far as we can find, goes back to the northeast U.S. in the 18th century, so in the 1700s. So it was in people. I don't remember ages. I looked at it. I didn't bring that with me, but I don't remember ages. But we're alive, some alive in here in the around the American Revolution, which is just a thing that's true, not a thing that I'm saying is good, but that is, yes, that is a thing that's true. But 3/4 of my ancestry is German, and in the course of trying to learn more accurate history of America, learn more about the systems of oppression that have kept some of that real history from us, kept us from understanding it. Anyway, trying to learn that real history and unlearn all these systems and biased ways of looking at the world. I have found that it's really helpful for me to have some connection to my own ancestry. And you could pick, even with my family, since there's adoption, there's a choice to make there of, am I looking at ancestry of genetics or ancestry of family and stories? Because, the stories, the personalities that shaped my grandparent were that adoptive family, who had been in the U.S. much longer. And so I think the reality is it's all part of it, but I don't know. I still have a tendency to think of genetics, which is real because that's one of the things that we have, and often one of the only, kind of the ways that we can trace genealogy, trace our stories back in time. It's hard to find other ways, but at least on the personal level, it's hard to find other ways to trace our stories back in time. But, I could also think about economic ancestors, or cultural ancestors. So I could think about, I was, a white person born in Iowa, but I could think about all the other, this community of other people, settlers who have come here and, maybe decided to come here and maybe through economic or other means felt like this was the best option. Maybe, I don't know. And, how many people are excited, because we're on the privileged, to extent receiving end of this huge land takeover. But at the same time, these individuals, the individuals I know, most people are always going to be working class or relatively poor, right? And not necessarily directing the big economic decisions that get made about what their options are. Anyway, but I could think about that. I could think about other Iowans. I could think about, I could focus on my hometown, which is Ames, and a train town, and then later a university town. Also a land grant university, which was a very direct direct economic decision through a handful of laws by the United States government in the 19th century to steal land from the indigenous people here and give them to universities. And that's one of those very effective and clever kind of hiding places for that kind of theft, because a university is a good thing. A place for people to learn is a good thing. and land for, you know, a lot of these land grant universities are agricultural, like studying, like on the surface, studying agriculture, getting helping farmers, whatever, like those are good things. So and it takes an extra level to learn the history of that and try to evaluate, you know, it's so hard, like, to evaluate how to feel about any particular result that lives alongside me in 2025 of all these different decisions and all the people who had different amounts of agency over them. But anyway, those are a lot of things I can think about. But yes, it helps me to be able to connect to some folk belief and kind of cultural identity that is more focused, is more connected to a place, and community. And for me, I feel like for a lot of white Americans, that involves looking for where our ancestors came from, you know, generally in Europe, and looking into the folk beliefs and stories that come from there. And I find that helpful because it is fulfilling for me, and makes me feel connected, and not just like, you know, I'm not going to go on to this tangent of all the layers to what I'm about to say, but it often feels bad to feel like I'm a settler here in Iowa, and maybe I don't belong. You know, maybe the world would be better if all my ancestors had made different choices, had different choices, and, you know, the possibilities that ended up with a white woman like me being born took place in Europe still. That's possible. Anyway, it's possible that would have been better, but I can't change it. So I'm just stuck in this place where it often just feels bad. So being able to connect to, you know, German and Northern European mythology and folk culture feels personal, feels like, okay, this is something that can belong to me and I can feel comfortable with. And it also helps keep me from doing another thing that our white supremacist training does, which is to talk about all, you know, folk stories and creation myths and all these things as things that lesser cultures do. You know, we use all sorts of, I don't know, I want to say euphemisms. You know, there are sometimes words that are only shitty in this in this situation, and sometimes are shitty and we only feel comfortable using them in this situation. But anyway, you know, we talk about primitive cultures or simple cultures or undeveloped cultures or all these different things. And obviously that's part of violence against those cultures, because it makes us disregard the lived truths of the people who are part of them. But it also, I think, it hurts us because it takes away our ability to find these ways to connect, find these ways to say, okay, you know, so this is a small way that I am doing something that people I'm connected to, or people I've come from, have been doing some way or another for a long time. So anyway, that leads me to Olaf once again. I have this, partially I found this great book. It's called Hausgeister. I know it'll be backwards. Hausgeister, Household Spirits of German Folklore, and talks about some of the different concepts of spirits. You know, there were nature spirits and house spirits. Sometimes spirits would come, you know, like would be carried in with a stack of wood for the fire, and then and attach themselves, or maybe lumber or something for building the house. A spirit would come attached to it, and then it might just take up residency in your house. And for some, you know, some perspectives and some stories, I love this book because it does make it clear how diverse, you know, there isn't one actual way or one correct way or one original way that all of these things that, you know, a house spirit or different spirit works. There were all these different kind of relationships with the concept that different people at different cultures and times had. So anyway, a spirit might come into your home attached to an object or a material, and sometimes that was a spirit that you would want to get rid of. You know, it'd be causing mischief or sometimes danger. And often, though, it would belong there. It would come in attached to a piece, you know, maybe a piece of wood that was going to be part of your home or was going to help heat your home. So it belonged to that wood, and since that wood came to belong in your home, that spirit now belongs here, and they are now part of your home. And people would have little, you know, maybe have a little figure, you know, carved of wood, or different, I know of examples carved of wood, but they could be, you know, you can only imagine the things that haven't survived on all the more degradable things that we just don't know about. But have a little figure in your house to remind you that the spirit is here, and they're part of the atmosphere, part of the ecosystem. And I have really liked that. I've really liked having Olaf. He has a little offering bowl, so I can give him little treats and, you know, cool rocks and things. It's easy to fill up that offering bowl, so I try not to, you know, try to be judicious, be picky about what's really good enough for him. But it helps, because then I can think about finding a cool thing to bring back to the apartment for him, whether it's, you know, a rock or an acorn I pick up on a walk, or I found like pieces of candy in a store to be something that makes sense for him. But it helps me as someone, you know, who struggles with different kind of, you know, mental health, mental illness things, and after effective trauma things. I struggle with feeling connected. I struggle with feeling grounded in myself, in my body, in my place, in my relationships and communities. I struggle in a way that's, you know, completely, at least part of which is completely separate from the reality of any relationships or place or function or whatever that I have in society. Yes, that feeling connected and grounded is a thing I struggle with. So having a little house gnome, I have found very helpful, because he is here for our home. He cares about our home. I can bring him things to show that I care about him and my home, even if I'm not feeling connected to myself, even if I'm not feeling connected to my place, even if I'm feeling extremely stressed about money, and that is connected to rent and my apartment, obviously. But despite all of that, Olaf is here and he cares, and I can show appreciation for him, just let him sit and be himself and not worry about him too much. I try to show him respect, but not be in his face all the time. Okay, and then I guess I said at the beginning, this is me trying to connect with some of the not shitty aspects of my heritage, because obviously throughout history and spiking in a way that is, you know, as so many things, not surprising, but completely shocking and awful, are people who are white, believe in this concept of whiteness that was actually, you know, created a few centuries ago to oppress all of us, like to harm non-white people more than white people, but the overall system was created to harm all of us, to hurt, to make us feel slightly better than people who have it worse, so we don't complain about how bad things are for us, among other things. But so people who believe in this concept of whiteness and feel like it's a thing to be proud of, and take all these other aspects of European, Northern European, German history that I'm trying to look through for pieces that I might want to connect with and learn about. It's so hard. You have to be so careful, because a lot of the people who've been interested in that, especially in the last century and right now, are assholes who want to hurt other people and feel like their pride and their identity requires them to hate and to harm others. So anyway, I guess so I'll finish by saying I don't recommend looking into your into the stories or mythology of people in your ancestry, of your ancestors, with the hopes of finding the original or the correct or the best thing to believe, because there isn't one. There has never been just one. There have always been lots of different ways to connect with the world and to understand ourselves and our communities and our ecosystems and our places in them. So don't go looking for the right thing. Don't listen, look out for all the shitty keywords that I might talk about in a different video but don't really want to talk about now. But rather look for something like a house gnome that you can sit with and think about and connect with, but who doesn't require you to feel better than anybody, because his job, our job, is just to be in this home, to take care of this home and belong here the best we can. And that best changes, but our job is his home. And then other things, I also have roles outside of this home that connect me to other communities in different ways. But Olaf isn't really part of that, and he definitely isn't invested in us being better than anybody else. He's just invested in us being ourselves and our family. Right? Yeah. I'm confident in speaking for him on that. Yeah, so I would love to know if you found any other little joyful things that keep you grounded, whether it's to do with any kind of ancestors you connect with or not. I love all the little ways that we have, and I think all of us probably have them, though a lot of us name them different things or have different kind of concepts of what they mean or what they really are. But we have all these different things that help us connect to where we belong, and the little silly things that make us feel like we're here, I think, are really joyful and really important. And yeah, that joy and connection, I think, is really vitally important right now. Anyway, and again, I would love to hear anything that you have found or are interested in along those lines. So thank you again. Thank you to Olaf. and I will see you again soon. Okay.